Welcome to the Collector's Cast, where we talk all things collecting and collectible. Today with me, as always, is my co-host Mike Bloski. I'm Clint Wilson. What are we doing here, Mike?
Well, we're going to have a little show here about people collecting all types of collectibles. If you name it, we're going to talk about it. And we're going to talk about this just crazy culture of collecting antiques to video games, you name it, we're going to talk about it.
Yeah, we're going to talk about what makes people collect, what drives them to collect. Because there's something that pushes us to amass all this stuff and get it together. I don't know exactly what it is. Maybe doing this show, we'll find that out.
And you know, Clint, we're going to also touch on that there's people out there that collect stuff, and they don't even know that they're actually collecting stuff. They're just doing it, and they never really took a pause to say, "Oh, I guess I do collect that." And because we're going to find that almost everyone collects something.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, I've run into that very thing too. You know, you got a guy who's got, well, I bought this old car and did this, and then I fixed up this one and that. And, buddy, you got a car collection. I do.
And we're probably going to talk on the edge of hoarding almost to some, because some collectors are just that. They're hoarders.
That is a whole subject on its own. What is the difference between collecting and hoarding? And that is a blurry line that some people do like to push back and forth. As my ex-wife will tell you, she thinks I'm a hoarder.
Well, you might be.
It's entirely possible. We're going to talk about recent finds on these episodes, things that we're finding out in the field of picking and junking, as they call it. Today, we were going to touch on something big that I got at a recent auction of antiques and memorabilia. And normally we're going to have it out on the table here for the people watching on YouTube to see it, but we don't have to, because all you got to do is look up, way up, and there's the subject of our appreciation today, the big Carnival gambling wheel. And, well, besides being a Carnival gambling wheel, what can you tell us about it, Mike, since I've owned it?
Well, it's massively heavy. I can tell you it's about 200 pounds. And it came, Clint bought it just the wheel, so it didn't have the stand that it could spin on. So through the wonders of the internet, I searched out pictures of vintage Carnival wheels, right from ones that were at Coney Island to one on the wharf down at Santa Cruz, to a couple of gypsy wheels. And I came across one in Greece. And they all had basically the same type of stand that they were mounted on. And it's in behind the chair. We can't see, but it's massively heavy and well braced. And it took me probably 2 or 3 full days of just engineering and building, because you've got something.
Just to hold the weight up.
Just to hold the weight up of it, suspended and spinning.
And now Mike said earlier the 200-pound thing. That's just the wheel without the stand. Mounted together, they got to be close to 5. Like, the thing is massively
it's very heavy. And taking into consideration, I wanted it to be authentic, so I thought, well, this thing would have spun, 500 times a day at a carnival?
Yeah, at least.
So it had to be, we made it as authentic as possible.
Yeah. We don't have it fully engineered up to spinning right now and a pointer on it, but that's coming in the future. We just wanted to make sure that we had it up for display. So yeah, that originally comes from the PNE, the Pacific National Exhibition, which is a mainstay carnival here in Vancouver, and been around since, I don't even know when the PNE started, 30s or 40s at least, I think. And but it's got that look of the old Carnival wheel. They are around. I don't know. I don't think there's any one company that makes them. I think they're just sort of made by the carnies themselves, but they all seem to follow kind of a similar design. I don't know of a company that builds these, though. I think they're all hand done, would be my guess. But yeah, this, by all of our research, is probably 1930s, I would say.
I would say so.
Yeah. And it's an impressive beast, I tell you.
Yeah.
But what
We've
makes
lifted it a few times.
well, and I think what makes it so attractive is a few things. One is it's got to do with gambling. A lot of people like gambling. A lot of people like the excitement and the risk. And it's Carnival itself is big. We're going to do an episode on that coming up. And the colors, they just look so great with the reds and the yellows and the blues all together. And it's just a cacophony of visual excitement.
And the mirrors, the mirrors reflecting. I noticed that all the ones that I looked at, they all had mirrors on them. I think that was to mesmerize
Yes.
the people,
Hypnotize them into getting out
into
some more
spending
money.
more money. Yeah.
No,
But interesting, it'll be an interesting thing, is that you would wonder why this wheel all of a sudden was retired. Let's just say, if at these carnivals now, if it's more of an electronic thing, or are there still a lot of these wheels out there in use?
I don't know. I believe that most of it comes from them just shutting down. It's kind of going the way of the dodo, the traveling circus, the traveling carnival. There's less and less of them all the time. That's another. The circuses used to be huge because back before the internet or anything like that, the circus would come to town. It was a huge deal, especially in a smaller town. It was excitement that you just didn't ever see. And they used to paint things so bright and all the animals and excitement. But that's one of the things that has made the circus go away.
And we should probably leave all that for our carnival episode.
Yes, that's true too. I'm glad Mike's on top of things today. Yes, you're right. You're right. But anyway, that was a beautiful find. I'm glad I got it. I don't really want to sell it, but inquiries can be made. And speaking of that, if you want to get a hold of the show, you can reach us at feedback@thecollectorscast.com. If you got questions, concerns, whatever you're thinking of, just shoot us a line, and we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah. And on the recent find thing, Clint, there was a little something that I found, and I don't know if I mentioned it to you, but
Okay.
I found
I'm all
a
ears.
couple weeks ago in a little thrift store in a little town in BC, in Agassiz, a Nicky Hayden motorcycle jacket, special edition motorcycle jacket.
Really?
And for those that don't know, Nicky Hayden was a awesome motorcycle racer, an American. Came from a family of, I believe there were 4 brothers at one time, all racing motorcycles professionally. He won the World Superbike
I was
title.
just going to say, is this superbike
Yeah.
stuff? So it's road courses.
Absolute master, this guy was. And sadly, just after he retired, he was in a charity bicycle ride in Italy. And he was hit by a truck and killed on a bicycle. After all that,
all that
racing
surviving.
motorcycles 200 miles an hour.
Now, would he have been a guy that would go to the Isle of Man?
I don't believe he ever raced at the Isle of Man. Those guys were sort of a special chicken. But he did, he was the MotoGP champion, which is the equivalent to Formula One.
For those
racing.
fans of the show that don't know what the Isle of Man is or the Isle of Man TT, Google that. It's insane.
Insane.
What's the average speeds they're getting up to now?
Oh, over 200 miles an hour.
Riding around this island off the coast of England that
on regular roads that people drive on.
Insanity. People are getting killed, and they all know that they've got they all know they've got a chance at biting it when they go there, but they still do it anyway.
One of my collectible things that I like to collect is motorcycle jackets. So I just
You and
thought
me
I'd
both,
mention that.
actually.
Yeah.
That's one thing. I'm sure we'll do a vintage clothing episode somewhere along the lines, but definitely vintage jackets, racing jackets, NASCAR jackets. They just look appealing because they got all the different advertising patches on them. They're usually bright colors. But yeah, like motorcycle leathers are always popular. Indian, Harley stuff. Anything with a cool look. I got that Von Dutch jacket of mine a few years ago that I just about wore right out to the threads.
I'm sure we've got a couple of NASCAR jackets that we could bring out with Tide and Home Depot logo on it.
The cool Home Depot logo?
Yeah, the cool home. That's another story, folks.
That is a story. We collect these jackets, and well, there's a whole sub-story to that jacket, too, that I don't think we'll tell today. But yeah, we collect these jackets, and this one I'd actually wanted to go get. It was a Home Depot themed.
Tony Stewart,
Stewart.
NASCAR, two-time NASCAR champion, Tony Stewart.
Yeah, and I'm not as big a NASCAR or a racing fan for that matter as Mike is, but I like the look of this jacket, and I was going to get it, and then it was way off, 20 miles away or something. I didn't have time, and I said, "Listen, man, do you want this jacket?" And he ended up getting it, and he goes, "Yeah, it's got the only thing," he goes, "it's got the big Home Depot logo on the back," and I said, just honestly, I said, "You mean like a cool Home Depot logo?" You started laughing. Right? Is there a cool Home Depot? No, it's just that square orange thing.
I said, "Yeah, pal. I don't think there's a cool Home Depot
Don't
logo."
they have one with like an eagle with a fish in its talons or something that carrying a knife in its beak?
It was just the regular Home Depot logo.
Okay.
But anyways, it sits proudly in my
The
jacket
Nikki Hayden
collection.
jacket.
Yes, the Nikki Hayden and the Tony Stewart Home Depot jacket.
Oh yeah, jackets go off from there. I got the Led Zeppelin jacket here in the room. The tour jacket.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Our producer Matt is looking over fondly at it. 1977 Led Zeppelin tour jacket that you could only buy from the tour, from their merch table. It was $400 in 77 on their American tour. That was a lot of money. I remember 77, I think we were paying $200 a month rent for a house in Prince George.
Whoa.
So yeah, a couple months rent to buy a jacket wasn't something everybody bought.
They get you a mailbox
Yeah.
out here in the Lower Mainland.
Oh
now.
yeah, if that. You wouldn't even get the shit house for the mailbox. But the thing about that jacket is because they were so expensive, there's very few of them around, and I did pay more than $400 for it this time around when it came up at auction. Auctions, a good source for finding things.
Yeah.
If you know what you're doing. Because, as we all know, well, we don't all know, but Mike and I know, and we're going to teach you all, that auctions are a place to find really good stuff, but also a place to get fooled.
Well, I think too, in one of our segments and one of our shows, we're going to talk specifically about things that may appear to be what they're not.
Yes.
Right. And there's a lot of them.
We're here to educate the public on how to collect better, how to pick better, how to junk better. And, it's not just something that happens overnight. You need experience.
And also, Clint, what I wanted to say is for people that, because it's happened to me, I've bought something and it wasn't exactly what I thought it was. And I did this a lot on eBay back in the days when eBay was big. But then I thought, well, wait a minute. I like the look of it. I hung it on the wall and I like the look. Yeah, it's not exactly what I thought it was, but I still like it. So
what are we talking about?
I'm not going to stress about. Oh, I bought this thermometer one time, and it was 2 flintlock like pirate guns crossed, and this nice
I think I remember
thermometer.
Was this the size issue?
Yes, and I thought it was going to be about 2 feet.
Yeah.
And then when I got it, it was 8 inches.
That's a classic. What you say there is a whole other subject we can get into later, is about getting fooled by scale. When you see a picture of something against a white background, you think it's going to be this big, it comes this big, or vice versa. That's a whole other story too. Anyway, we're going to get back to that and other things, among them listener questions, after we take a short break. Welcome back. Here we are. We're talking about collecting. And we did manage to get a listener question in. Mike, would you like to read what someone sent us here?
Yes, Clint. Jacob Decker of Winnipeg, Manitoba.
Go Winterpeg. My dad was born there.
Jacob, thanks for sending us in the question. And here's Jacob's question. What advice do you have for a person who wants to get into collecting but doesn't know anything past eBay? How can I basically get past the price gougers on the internet and start building my collection? I'm basically starting from step one here, so all the help is appreciated. Good luck on the launch of your new show, and I'll be listening. Well, thanks a lot, Jacob, and thanks for the good luck for us. And
I wish I knew what Jacob was collecting specifically, but you know what? It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. Because my advice to him would be, just think of it as anything. If you don't know how to play poker, don't walk into the most high-end room there is in the casino and lay all your money on the table, because you know you're going to get burned. Start small, work your way in. You have to learn your way around whatever it is you're collecting. And believe me, if you collect one thing for a decent amount of time, a year or 2 years, you're going to become an expert at it whether you want to or not. You're just going to start to know everything there is to know about it. And that's when you can walk into these auctions or look on eBay and go, no, that's a fake. I can tell the way it's, the colors don't match or whatever it is. But don't go whole hog right off the bat.
Jacob, here's a little bit of advice that you can take right from our spinning wheel up behind us here. When I had an idea of how I was going to make this wheel spin and how I was going to mount it. So my first about 6 hours was spent on something that did not work. It just wasn't going to work. And then I thought, well, wait a minute. Why am I trying to reinvent the wheel here? I'm going to go to the most trusted source that I know, the internet, and just look at some pictures. And I don't know how many. I probably looked at 100 pictures of spinning wheels, but all that information was on the internet. So, and I was able to, find exactly what I needed. You get on the internet and look at things, and it's amazing. Everything's on there. Hey, Clint, how many times has there been that you've bought something, pedal cars specifically, and we had no idea. We got on the internet, a friend of Clint's, Susan, got on the internet and would find the exact fit car. I mean, and it might be in Iowa or Oklahoma, but someone's got a picture of it on there, and we were able to
Identify
what it was.
True. The internet is your friend, and it's amazing.
And another thing, Jacob, is when you look at something, usually I find that if my initial instinct is, hey, I like that, I buy it.
Yeah.
When I get it home or whatever, and I go, well, maybe it's not quite what I thought it was, I don't sweat that. I just go, no, you know what? I looked at this. My initial gut was, I like it, and I bought it.
That's a very good point, Mike. And I was going to say the same thing. That don't get discouraged or think, oh man, I got burned, and get all depressed if you bring something home from the flea market or wherever and it's like Mike said, not exactly what you thought. Just remember, there was something about it when you first looked at it that you really fell in love with. It spoke to you. So whether it's a genuine article, a cheap copy or whatever, something made you like it at the beginning, and go with that and just enjoy it for what it is. I bet you half the people in the world or 90% of the people in the world won't know the difference. So the heck with them. Just enjoy it.
Hey, all the time, Clint says to me, I think I paid too much for that. And I go, well, you were dumb enough to pay that amount. There must be one other person out there.
Slightly dumber that will give me that much more.
Or at least give you your money back.
Yeah. Well.
I have done the same thing lots of times. Not a few times, lots of times. And then you say, well, hey, I bought it because I think I'm going to enjoy it.
And I find that if you buy what you love, you can never pay too much, because if you buy what you love, you'll never get stuck with anything. I don't feel like anything in my collection I'm stuck with that, oh my goodness, I can't get out of that now. And if you're on a budget, you want to make as few of those mistakes as you can, of course. But just remember that initial spark that you had with the thing and go with it.
Yeah, and you know, Clint, that's on just a little bit more serious note on that. As I know from being here in the shop every day, there's you never feel that you're stuck with something.
No.
And that's because you
I really like everything
you like
in
it
here.
and you buy it. So
I do.
yeah. So
Sometimes you go, you know what? I've looked at that enough. Somebody else wants it now, and you go,
yeah.
make me an offer I can't refuse, and I'll let it say goodbye. If you still really are in love with something and it sucks to let it go, up your price. You know, the thing is worth what somebody is willing to pay or what somebody is willing to hang on to it for. We determine value. Without human input, stuff is just stuff. It's inanimate. It's just matter. And it doesn't matter, but to people it matters.
And Jacob, don't be afraid to negotiate.
I forgot we're still talking
We're
to
still
Manitoba.
talking to Jacob.
We're still talking to Jacob.
Jacob,
in
don't be
Manitoba.
afraid to negotiate. You know, because you have just little trick. Remember, that guy who's selling that thing is selling it at a price where he's probably thinking he's going to hit a home run, or that's the amount of money he really wants to get out of it. But there's usually some wiggle room there.
Yeah. And I've even dared to go past the F word when something says firm. I said, how firm is firm? You know, you say 950, but
I think you can
doesn't
get
that
pills
mean
for
9 would be close enough, you know?
I think you can get pills for that.
Pills for firmness? No. We're talking about firm prices. Our prices are up. Anyway.
Okay, well,
hopefully that answers most of Jacob's questions today regarding.
And Jacob, listen, don't be afraid to send in more questions for us.
No.
Yeah, you know,
As you go, I'd like to hear how Jacob's career
and let
as
us
a
know.
picker collector develops.
Absolutely. Let us know, Jacob. And like we said, you can get a hold of us at feedback@thecollectorscast.com.
That's
Love
right.
to hear from you.
That's
Good luck.
right. But don't get a hold of us if you're mad at us. You say, you told me to negotiate, even though the price said firm, and the guy punched me in the eye. We don't want to hear those stories.
We only want to hear the good stuff.
That's right. Say, Mike, do you like trivia?
Oh, love trivia.
As you know, I'm an avid Jeopardy fan. Everybody I know says I should go on the show. But if I do it, I want to do it and like kick butt and win 50 episodes or more. So I got to study a little harder. The trivia I was going to ask you was about, in honor of the recent find of the giant Carnival wheel, I had a circus question. I know we're going to do a circus episode later, but today's question is circus related. First of all, what is the most famous circus in the world? What do you think when you think famous circus?
Well, I have to go with Ringling Brothers.
Yeah, okay. But is there another one that comes to your mind?
Barnum and Bailey.
Yeah, there you go. And it's funny. Those were two separate things, but we hear them together, and we have since before we were born, because Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey were one show. They started out separate. P.T. Barnum, the world's greatest showman, as they called him, started the Barnum and Bailey Circus in the 1800s, and Ringling Brothers they were kind of the two competing heads. And then Ringling Brothers bought out Barnum and Bailey, and they merged and became the Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus. Now, what year do you think they did that? I'll give you a multiple choice on this one. It's either 1906, 1919, or 1929.
1929.
No, it's actually 1919. It's actually 1919, but there's a little bit of a side thing to it. They actually bought Barnum and Bailey in 1906 after Bailey's death, but they ran them as two separate circuses until 1919, and then they just merged them and called them the Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey. But you're right. It's funny how you thought there were two different circuses.
I did.
And
yeah.
they've been together since before you were born.
Yeah, and the circus, like we talked about, we're going to talk a whole thing about carnivals and circus and stuff. We're going to have a whole episode on that at one point. Yeah, it's kind of it was such a magical thing when I was a kid.
And you wanted to run away enjoying it. Anyway, by chance, would you have a trivia question for me?
Clint, I have a trivia question for you.
Oh.
And it involves auctions.
Okay.
And it involves something that you know a lot about, guitars.
Okay.
Most expensive guitar to ever be auctioned off.
To sell at auction?
Sell at auction.
I'm going to say, well, obviously, it's not going to be based on the model of guitar. It's going to be based on who owned it. It's going to be based on that it was somebody like Jimi Hendrix or Eric Clapton. I'm going to say, and it's not going to be the burnt Stratocaster that he smashed and lit on fire. Or is it? I'm just going to say it's a Jimi Hendrix guitar. Educate me. I don't know.
Gilmore's iconic black Stratocaster.
David Gilmore, Pink
Gilmore.
Floyd fame.
Yes. $3.9 million.
$3.9 million.
And do you know who bought it?
Who?
Jim Irsay, Indianapolis Colts owner.
Oh, really? So he's obviously a giant Floyd fan.
Giant Floyd fan.
So I wonder if the Colts dressing room is going to have like black lights in it now. There's incense burning.
$3.9 million.
Wow. Well, David Gilmore, that surprises me because not only is it not only is it not Jimi Hendrix, but it's a living guitarist.
Yeah.
I figured it'd be a dead guitar player. But that makes sense because I heard a few years ago that Gilmore was auctioning off all his guitars for charity.
Yes.
And there's been a couple artists that have done that recently.
And you know what he did? He auctioned off a bunch of stuff, and I think he made $21 million off it, and donated most of the money to earth and environmental causes.
Wow. And, that interests me because a lot of our listeners and viewers don't know this, but I collect guitars, primarily bass guitars. The kid ones with only 4 strings because they're easier to play. No, I've been collecting bass guitars. In fact, as far as being a collector, that is the first thing that I majorly ever collected in my life was bass guitars. So that very much interests me. I've never paid that much for a guitar, but I have paid.
and when
to me, it felt like that much.
Yeah, and I would have thought for sure it was a Hendrix guitar.
Yeah.
I would have just said, oh, this is easy, Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah. Like his iconic white Strat with the pearl white with the white pick guard. That's what I would have guessed too. Or maybe a Jimmy Page guitar too. Yeah, everybody goes nuts over Zeppelin, so I do. Anyway, that was good trivia. I did not know that. Ed. So once again, I just want to thank everybody for tuning in and remind them to go to feedback@thecollectorscast.com if they want to send us their comments or questions. We loved having you. Absolutely.
And if you have something sitting around your house and you are just wondering about it, include that in there. We would love to try to help you. We're not saying we're experts, but if we don't know, we'll find someone who does know.
If you want to collect on the same scale that I do, I guarantee you have to be a master of all trades, a jack of all trades and a master of none. But be a master of all trades. That's probably the best way to do it. It only takes 10,000 hours to become an expert at something. How long do you live? I'm not a mathematician. Anyway.
All right, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Thank you very much.